Day 6, the Revoice Pope. Pastor Michael, it's time once again to come back into the 12 Days of Restless. How are you doing?
I'm doing much better. I'll still probably cough a little bit, but much better than the last time we recorded. I realized that since we have video, and we had one patron kind of comment on this, but since we have video, it's going to become clear that we're recording several of these at a time because we're going to just look the same. But that's okay.
I'm gonna commit to outfit changes. No, probably
every time.
But as I mentioned, since I'll be having a baby soon, this is the only way to do it.
Yep.
And this is what we can do. But Pastor Michael, this week, this brand new shiny week, starting off the 12 Days of Restless, I think we're gonna take the gloves off. We're gonna get into the weeds. It's gonna get controversial this week. We're gonna start with Roman Catholicism today. We're going to do some stuff on Christian nationalism this week. We're just going to dive in to all kinds of stuff. We might do a little bit on cessationism even. And so, but we are starting this week off discussing the Pope. And Pastor Michael, as it probably is, I should mention, as one of those dumb Protestants, to get up, to be able to discuss something as big brain as a Vatican announcement, I am drinking a protein shake instead of my normal White Claw to help make sure I'm ready, that I'm here and I'm ready to go.
Well, I have some green tea, so we will be drinking nothing super special today, I guess.
Well, I can't promise that I won't later, but for this to attain level, I will need.
You might not have outfit changes, but drink changes may come.
Maybe that's what I'll commit to. Changes. All right. So, Pastor Michael, we are obviously here about to discuss the papal announcement that Pope Francis approves Catholic blessings for same-sex couples, but not for marriage. Now, I chose the NPR version of this article because I guess I realized I'm guaranteed to get a complaint from people no matter what source I use.
Yeah.
But I am trying, everyone, to use a source to not get so many complaints. So what I want to skip to is, so it's the it's fiducia supplicans on pastoral meaning of blessings, and I'm going to skip from there. They have a little commentary on it, but it is the Vatican draws a distinction between ritual and liturgical blessings and those that are informal and spontaneous. The declaration remains firm on the traditions of the Church about marriage, not allowing for any liturgical rite or blessing similar to the liturgical rite that can cause confusion. But it's that there is a blessing. The blessing could happen in a shrine. All of this to say that there is a place for blessing those in same-sex relationships. I'd love to, because we will get into a Roman Catholic commenting on this. But Pastor Michael, I am sure, as you saw, so the Vatican stressed is marriages between a man and woman, and they can grant a blessing to a same-sex couple as long as it doesn't cause confusion or scandal. I will give you one spoiler alert. This definitely already caused confusion and scandal, so we've already failed on that level. But and if, Pastor Michael, a person wants a really, really person working so hard to be understanding about this, they can go watch Gavin Ortland's video on this and not ours. I promise you, we not try as hard to make the Pope look good as Gavin Ortland did. But Pastor Michael, what have you heard about this story since it came out, since the Vatican released this statement about a week ago?
Yeah, I had several people actually send it to me, people in my church and others just interested in knowing if I'd heard about it or what it means. And admittedly, there's going to be some headlines that do maybe push a little bit harder for what exactly this was saying. There's always confusion when it comes to the things this Pope particularly says. My guess is that it's always been that case That has always been the case, at least
Pastor
some.
Mike, that's not possible. With an infallible magisterium, that's what you need.
Yeah.
The clarity on the faith. I don't.
Right. Well, and this
We'll come back
is what's so funny about this kind of stuff is it's like the amount of explaining that all of the Roman Catholic apologists have to do. And by the way, I held myself back from sending this to all of my Catholic friends. I was gracious and I held back until now anyway. And but when you have this idea that, well, you can't have sola scriptura because everybody's going to have their own interpretation. You need an infallible magisterium to interpret the text. But my question is, who's going to interpret the interpreters? You know, like this, if this is what we get from an infallible magisterium, maybe we're just better off with just like the regular guy down the street who lives in a trailer park and has a King James Bible and can tell you what he thinks about it, right? Like we're at least not that much further from that, you know, when it comes to this kind of confusion. So that's the biggest thing, right? That this does absolutely introduce tons of confusion amongst people as to what exactly this means. Because you better believe that this is a move toward accepting same-sex relationships. It's 100% is. It is pushing in that direction. There's no doubt about that. You can try to cover that up, but that it's the same thing that happens within Protestant traditions, the same kind of slow acquiescence, right? Well, we're not saying it's a good thing. We're just saying that we're going to bless people who are in these situations. Well, what does that mean, right? What does that even mean? So
I think it is it, man. So we'll start. We'll because there's a few issues I want to get here. One, this is obviously, this just shows the weakness of being under the Roman Catholic hierarchy, right? This is actually why we want you to come out from under it, because this is a burdensome, unbiblical hierarchy that is obviously capable of change and error. That's why. That's the whole reason we're Protestants, right? I was going to make the joke at the beginning of this, like, hey, is the Pope Catholic? Who knows? No, here's the truth. The Pope is Catholic, and if he is, maybe you shouldn't be, right? If this Pope is the embodiment of tradition, then maybe you shouldn't be. But I think that this is the confusion. And the other thing, of course, and this is the challenge this Pope presents to Roman Catholic apologists, is the draw of Roman Catholicism that they are the church of all history, like that they are the continuation of the early church. This Pope would have been hung by many popes previous to him for saying things like this. It's just I don't even like. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that is just the case. Now, Pastor Michael, we're doing something though as we begin. That I think some of our Tradcath listeners, the very few of them, I want to give them some credit. They say the headline about this really is Protestants pounce on a pastoral statement by the Pope. Is that what this is all about? These horrible Protestants out there with their protein shakes, just firing up their YouTube channels so that they can pounce on these poor Roman Catholics. Is that the real story here?
No, I mean, we do love to pounce. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Love a good pounce. I don't think that there's any problem with that. But no, the issue, at least for many in our circles, I think, is that we've seen this argument time and time again that it is the Roman Catholic magisterium that preserves the faith and preserves not even just that, but especially right now, there's this push that like it preserves the like truly historic traditional faith. And so when you have then the head of your church, right, the Pope, when he is continually saying things, moving in a direction that we've all seen in so many other modern Christian leaders, he's doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, when he is just being a modernist or a postmodernist, right? When he's moving in those directions, there's nothing wrong with us saying, look, your guy's doing it too, right? And the difference is that when people on the Protestant side do that, we can distance ourselves from them and say, hey, guess what? What they're saying is not the authoritative interpretation of Scripture. What they're saying is not the authoritative interpretation of the tradition. They can err. They can make a mistake. Now, I know everybody's going to say, well, yeah, he can err too, right? The popes can err, of course. We just don't know when. We don't know when he's speaking ex cathedra. There's debate about it. And it's not just Protestants, by the way. If you go and follow somebody like Ed Fazer on Twitter, you'll see his comments on this were actually much more moderate, where he was like, listen, it's not everything the liberal media is saying, but at the same time, this is bad. And this is moving in a bad direction. And I think he's moving more and more toward a reformation of his own every day. And there are many like that. What is the move to want to go back to kind of the pre-Vatican II Roman Catholic Church? What is that other than, hey, we've made a wrong turn and we've got to do something different?
And our claim is you just made that wrong turn a few hundred years before that point. So.
Much earlier, yeah. It was a wrong turn. You're right. It just was a continued wrong turn.
That's right. You already lost, and so every turn from there was only going to be more lost. Again, right? It's a fundamentally dishonest way to handle something. If you say, you reporting on my bad behavior is the real story, how could you? That's just not an honest way to do it. Now, we just didn't. Not that we wouldn't be willing to do it. If you are interested in this in the comments, we'd be happily willing to review Andy Stanley's recent sermon where he did a similar move. Obviously not in the highbrow, I'm going to differentiate between a liturgical blessing and a spiritual blessing.
What? Andy Stanley didn't do that? That's
That's
crazy.
All of these things, but he's making the same kind of move. Right. Yeah. Revoice was making the same
and we've talked a lot about this, right? This is in our own quarter. This is within particularly the PCA, our denomination. We're both ordained in the PCA, and we had no problem talking about that, the problems of Revoice, the problems of those like Greg Johnson who are supporting it. We're very willing to talk about the problems of Revoice type theology. Whether it is from the Pope or just from a regular pulpit.
And so I think that this is a story. Let me show you one other. This is an interview that one of the news stories did with, they called him a Roman Catholic scholar. I'm sure our Roman Catholic listeners will debate on if, the guy, Father James Martin, actually counts or not.
I feel like anybody who listens to us or who's friends with us is probably more on the let's say traditional side of the Roman Catholic Church, and somebody like Reverend James Martin is not going to be somebody they love, probably.
No, there aren't sides in the Roman Catholic Church, Pastor Michael. They're one united, completely.
It's one unit. That's right. It's one. It's obviously It has so much unity. Look at all the unity.
So here is what James Martin, how he reported on the change. And again, I think it is it will make the point that I actually think is something the Pope does. This Pope does a lot. So this is his point. This is a decision to allow priests and deacons and bishops to bless same-sex couples in certain situations. You couldn't make it seem like marriage, of course. You couldn't have it as a kind of liturgical rite. But people who are in same-sex unions who have been married legally, let's say they say, come to the park and do a little blessing for us outside, or come to the house in our backyard. That's a big deal. And look, I could not do that publicly before. I was not permitted to do that, and now I am. So it's a big shift. It's a big shift in the way the church looks at same-sex couples. And I'm not using all of his editorializing here, but that is a shift, right? That is a big shift that's going on. And that's how he is reporting on it and understanding it. And here's the thing that I think, again, if you look at the mainstream news reports on this, like it will range from like the Pope blesses same-sex union to the church is changing its view. Like the range of things they're willing to claim about this is huge. Yeah. Obviously, fascinatingly, of course, the Vatican's no, not correct, is not working hard to correct those things, because what this Pope seems to do is, I said when we were talking about Doug Wilson, I said, sometimes I'm concerned that he communicates in a way that seems like a Mont and Bailey, which at the far end of the Mont and Bailey becomes a dishonest way to speak. I think this Pope is fundamentally a dishonest communicator and basically always is communicating in a Mont and Bailey. He'll say things like, we now bless same-sex unions. The news media reports everything. All the people get freaked out. No. There's been no change in doctrine. Right? The global warming and Christian nationalism are the greatest threats to humanity worldwide. I'm just making right? Like, I'm not speaking ex cathedra. I'll go to the World Economic Forum stuff, right? Like, everything he does is, it seems apparent to me, it is always meant to be read in two different ways. Meant to be read in a directional way, but then whenever there is a intense questioning of it, right, they fall back to, well, no, we're the church that's never changed in time.
Right. Yeah. It seems that way. And it's sad, right? It's not good.
No.
We're not rejoicing in this fact. Now, I mean, we're gonna maybe gloat a little bit. we're gonna maybe use it a little bit to poke fun, but that's because it's a serious problem, right? It's the classic phrase, right? Who will watch the watchmen? Well, who will interpret the interpreters? You're put into a bind, and I feel bad for those under that system, right? Like, that's a great burden to bear, if that's the religious system that you're under.
And here is my call for, like, what's actually wrong with this, what's actually so serious. And it applies to Andy Stanley, it applies to the Pope, it applies to anyone doing this. I just immediately thought of two verses, regardless of what you're telling me is true about the Roman Catholic Catechism and all these things. There were just two verses that I thought of, and then one literary reference, and we'll see if we get to that. The first verse I thought of was Matthew 18:6, which is where Jesus says, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and be drowned into the depths of the sea. I don't really care how much has changed, but right, the seriousness to which Jesus, like, will judge anyone who leads a professing Christian towards sin. I mean, he couldn't use more strong language.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dangerous and evil, right? Because obviously we are not talking about we're just blessing sinners. We're just showing kindness to sinners. No, obviously that's not it. And the other thing is the sign from Romans 1 that you should leave the Roman Catholic Church. Let me go here. Oh boy, we got my ad blocker up, so I guess I can't share one with you all. Right. The verse I'm talking about from Romans 1 is Romans 1. Oh, is it 26? I think it's 26. Oh, let me just get a Bible. We'll do this the old-fashioned way, everybody. We'll open a Bible because I am a Protestant. So, Romans 1, I believe 26. Yeah, no. It's so Paul is listing all of the sins that are assigned God's wrath is upon you, right? And obviously he made an extended case against same-sex relationships, even highlighting men and women, right, in a unique way. Then he lists a number of other sins, right? Unrighteousness, evil, strife, gossips, slanderers, haters, disobedient to parents. And he says, though they know, 32, though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. That Paul believes that there is such a sign of God's wrath that not only are you going to commit sins, right? Not only will you do the shameful things, you will give approval to those who do them.
Yeah.
That
and this
is
isn't talking about, by the way, it's not saying, we're not talking about, the idea that here's somebody who is repentant, right? Like they know that they're in sin. They know that they've been living a sinful lifestyle and they desire change, right? Like they desire to actually come and to follow Christ. That's not what we're talking about.
no.
Right. We're talking about blessing those who are in active, extreme forms of rebellion.
Because Paul's word to those who are repentant, right, is that Jesus will be a perfect savior to you.
Yeah.
He says, right, to the Corinthians, that such were some of you, but you were washed, justified, sanctified. He loves you. But the people who don't love you are the ones who give approval to you. It reminds me this is the literary reference in the short story in the Brothers Karamazov, the Grand Inquisitor. And Jesus appears to the Grand Inquisitor and the Grand Inquisitor hates him, right? It's this fascinating discussion. But he says, we are the truly merciful ones. You created a religion that who can bear? We told them they can sin if they just follow our system. That is what's happening today.
Wow.
That there is a religious system, and there are many religious systems that allow people to not love Christ, not to receive his love, not repent and have faith in him, but want the trappings of religion. And I fear for the soul of any religious leader that would be part of promoting such a system. Pastor Michael, I told you the 12 days of Restless this week were going to get heavy. Please subscribe to this channel. Share it with your friends. Share this Christmas tide greeting with your friends, because we love everybody all the time here.